Today I have an honor to speak to the British Ambassador to Armenia, Mr. John Gallagher. Ambassador Gallagher, thank you for coming to our studio in Yerevan. I can't imagine any interview with a high-ranking Western official without asking first question about Ukraine. So the Prime Minister Boris Johnson left no doubt that what is happening in Ukraine is Russia's aggression against a sovereign democratic country, that the action of Vladimir Putin's regime against civilians in Ukraine fully qualify as war crimes. I was just quoting Prime Minister from his statement in the British Parliament almost 2 weeks ago. Since then, Russia intensified indiscriminate bombing of the Ukrainian cities. How would you describe Russia's actions now?
Well, I think that's absolutely right. What we have seen is a really terrible situation caused by Russian aggression. They have started a war that has affected the lives of the entire Ukrainian nation. There are indiscriminate bombings and shelling of cities and civilian living areas. This has caused a huge amount of suffering, enormous amount of suffering. A massive exodus in terms of refugees, looking at almost 3 million refugees at this point, I believe. And for all of those actions of unprovoked attacks on the Ukrainian people, we believe that that constitutes a case for war crimes, and it's important that Vladimir Putin's regime is held accountable for that.
So who is to be blamed for what happened in Ukraine? Needless to say that Russia would not have risked starting the war if it believed that there will be enormous consequences or severe consequences, as many Western leaders used to say nowadays. The sanctions imposed on Russia will surely ruin the Russian economy, as it has already started. Why would Russia believe that it can attack, destroy, and change the democratically elected government in Ukraine and get away with it? Where do you see the failure on the part of the Western countries or the West as a whole?
Well, I see the responsibility for this war as falling squarely on Vladimir Putin's regime. This was a choice that they made to attack an independent sovereign nation. Their motivations are for them to explain, but it is absolutely clear that this attack was unjustified, unprovoked, has been condemned by the international community. I think we've seen an enormous amount of solidarity from the rest of the world that come together, developed this extremely extensive package of sanctions that I think have been very effective in terms of targeting the system and the structures in Vladimir Putin's system that will show that Russia will pay a real price for having started this war, and I think it's a real testament to the international community's commitment to upholding universal values that we hold dear in terms of respecting sovereignty and a country's right to choose their own future. That we are providing, or that we have developed this response to Russia's actions. I think it's been unprecedented. I think it's been effective in sending a very clear message that this type of aggression is not justified, and we won't stand by whilst it happens. As
I remember, you know, the last 5 years, I mean, we've seen really very weak. I mean, I shouldn't say very weak, but you know, you didn't see this sort of consolidation among the Western countries that we see now. There were some differences in NATO countries, among NATO countries, also in the European Union, and there was differences between, for example, London, Brussels, and Washington. But now everything is okay. Everybody is united against, you know, Russian aggression. But what I'm trying to say that even Western countries, European Union, were reluctant to go deeper into the sanctions imposed even severe sanctions, even then when Russia was already violating international commitments. And there were a lot of human rights violations, brutal oppression of opposition. And we've seen that, they are really serious about attacking Ukraine. We knew that. But, as many believe, the Western countries, especially Germany and some other European countries, they are, financing, they're financing Russian energy industry. And thus they are providing the war chest for the Vladimir Putin. What do you say about that?
Well, I would say that the international response that we've seen has shown a huge amount of Western unity in terms of response to that. We've seen the decision on the Nord Stream 2 pipeline that has now been shelved. That is a really important statement of how we want to reduce Russia's ability to sell its gas to Western markets and therefore to receive financing that way. We are scaling down our linkages to Russian oil and gas. We're looking at alternative sources, and we believe that through a coordinated international response, effective sanctions, which I believe we have put together, this will have a real negative impact on the Russian economy in a way that shows Vladimir Putin and his regime that there are really important costs to be paid for the acts that they've done. And I would also say that this Western unity is not without cost to ourselves. We recognise there will be negative impacts for us in terms of our transition away from trading with Russia. But we believe that the principle of standing up to Russia, making them understand that the act that they've taken has to carry a price for them, is worth the adjustment to our own economic situation as well. So I would say that this has been a real example of how coordinated international action can send a very clear message with a very real impact onto an aggressive state like Vladimir Putin's Russia.
Ambassador, would you tell us a little bit more about Russian oligarchs in Britain? We know that they have a lot of properties in London, and we've seen interesting pictures. People were just occupying these buildings, trying to give them up to Ukrainian refugees. But in terms of sanctions against these oligarchs, can you just tell us what is happening with them? Are they deprived from everything, their properties? Do they have access to their bank accounts? How would you describe the situation that they are in, please?
Well, the UK has taken very clear targeted action against Russian oligarchs with business interests or financial assets or any assets in the UK. I believe more than 300 have been sanctioned, have been subject to sanctions, and what that means is that they won't be able to use the UK as a means of moving their money around or hiding their assets. There is really no way for them to hide what they're doing in the UK, and the measures that the UK government has taken has been very much focused on that. So whether it's business interests that they can no longer manage as they did previously, or financial assets that have been frozen, they won't be able to move their assets through the UK in the way that they had done previously. So I think that will cause real a real negative cost to those people, and they have been chosen because they are close to Vladimir Putin and his inner circle, and through that we think we are focusing on the people that can help bring about the change we want to see, which is for Russian forces to withdraw from Ukraine, for Russia to acknowledge that the price that they're paying is not what they expected initially, and therefore this war has been a miscalculation, and therefore it must end. And this is all part of the international community's response. That's the outcome that we're all aiming for, and the package of sanctions and wider measures, as well as the support that we're providing to Ukraine at the moment, is very much focused on achieving that outcome of a withdrawal of Russian forces.
There is concern among Armenians that are working in Russia, sending back the money to their relatives in Armenia proper. So we have a lot of people working there, you know, a lot of migrant workers. I mean, tens of thousands, perhaps hundreds of thousands. And with these economic sanctions, they also will suffer enormously. And we already see that, you know, they can't obviously send as much money as they would send previously, because ruble is just worthless now. What do you think? Also, I believe that these sanctions will have very negative impact also on Armenian economy, because Russia is the largest single market for Armenian goods, you know, agriculture and other goods, you know, and a lot of small and medium-sized businesses in Armenia sell their products in Russia. What's your take on that? What will happen with those people?
Well, the consequences of the economic sanctions package are very, very real, and the sanctions package is focused squarely on Russia. We accept that, you know, people will be affected by the hit to the Russian economy, and the fact that Armenia has such a deeply integrated economy with Russia, including through Armenians going to work in Russia, send remittances back. We recognise that will be impacted. Our focus is not to cause hardship in that sense, but we can see that will be a consequence of this. And what I would say is that we are really not. Our aim is not to cause hardship to Russian people. Our aim is to get the Russian government to recognise that this war of aggression will bring very negative consequences for them, and the fact that the Russian economy has been so heavily impacted. You've seen that through the impacts on the ruble as well. We really hope will drive that decision to withdraw forces. Now, Armenia is connected to the Russian economy very clearly, but that is not the focus of these sanctions. And I hope that the economic negative impacts will be short and limited.
Now I'm going to ask you the question about Russia's behavior in the South Caucasus. Russia, along with its autocratic partner Turkey, shrugged off international mediators from negotiating process of Nagorno-Karabakh conflict, limiting the OSCE Minsk group's agenda to just humanitarian issues. Both countries, Russia and Turkey, took the sides of Azerbaijan on this issue and excluded, actually, the Minsk group from being the sole mediator in the conflict settlement. The conflict is solved. There is no conflict. It is solved by Russia and its partners, they used to say. You know, Russia, Turkey, and Azerbaijan hold the same line. There is no conflict, therefore there is no need, you know, to solve the conflict. So what would you say about this?
Well, the UK's position is that the peaceful settlement for this conflict, in terms of the final status of Nagorno-Karabakh, is part of the mandate of the OSCE's Minsk group. And our position on that has not changed throughout since the end of the conflict. What we want to see is the OSCE Minsk group given a role in terms of facilitating a negotiated, peaceful, long-term agreement for Armenia and Azerbaijan, and in that sense, they still have a very clear role to play. So our position is that the OSCE Minsk group is still very much part of the solution and has the mandate to help deliver that long-term settlement.
Yeah. And is that the position that some Western countries believe? And what's your take on that? Is there unanimity on this issue, for example, with France, with Germany, with others, with the United States? Do you know?
Well, I can't speak for what other countries' views are, but as co-chairs of the Minsk group, I would. France and the USA have a role to play, and as I understand it, the Minsk group still has that mandate, and therefore that is the purpose of that group.
So you firmly believe that your government firmly believes that OSCE should continue, Minsk group should continue to have this key role in finding the peaceful solution to the Nagorno-Karabakh.
That is our view. It's a view we've held consistently, that the OSCE Minsk group has this role, and that has not changed.
Now, Armenians believe that the Western countries, including Great Britain, were indifferent during the Nagorno-Karabakh war and didn't move resolutely to stop it, letting Russia to be seen as a savior of the peace in the region. The democratically elected government in Armenia barely survived the internal crisis, as that was believed to be instigated by the Kremlin. The country was on the verge of complete collapse and loss of sovereignty, but we didn't see any support from the West, and even if there was, it was invisible. What's your analysis? What's your take on that, please?
Well, I would say that the UK certainly was very active during the period of the war and following it. I mean, whilst the war was ongoing, we were working behind the scenes with the international community to try and facilitate ceasefires. We're working very closely at the UN Security Council. And we're in frequent contact with the foreign ministers of both Armenia and Azerbaijan. So I think it's unfair to say that the international community was disengaged. The UK certainly, as part of that effort, was really trying to bring an end to the conflict, to create the conditions for a sustainable peace agreement. And we continue to do that. I would say that since the end of the conflict, we have also invested our energy into engaging with both sides to enable them to come together to encourage confidence-building measures. And that in Armenia, we have provided support to the communities bordering on the Armenian side, so Vaetzor, Gegakunik, Sunik, those areas that have received internally displaced people or have otherwise been affected by that conflict, providing psychosocial support, economic support. And we were also, I believe, the first international donor to provide a significant amount of funding to the ICRC, who operate within Nagorno-Karabakh as part of the humanitarian efforts immediately after the conflict.
And we see that these days there are reports that gas supply was cut off in Nagorno-Karabakh. because of some technical difficulties there, but Azeris would not allow Armenians to go and repair this pipeline that, you know, is pumping gas to Nagorno-Karabakh. Are you communicating with Baku, with Azeris, and with perhaps Turks that they can somehow change their position on that? It's a freezing temperature in Stepanakert and Nagorno-Karabakh. It's really, really tough situation. Are you doing something, Ambassador?
So yes, it has been a worrying situation with the lack of gas supply to the inhabitants of NK. But I've seen reports recently that the repairs needed for that gas pipeline are about to start or have started. So that's encouraging. Clearly, what we would like to see is swift resolution of any issues around the line of contact, and we would encourage both sides to engage constructively with each other to solve any issues, to avoid any escalations, and through that to create the conditions for a long-term peaceful settlement.
As a result of the war between Armenia and Azerbaijan, I mean, a lot of experts believe that Russia is the real winner out of this war, because it has already foothold in Azerbaijan as well, on Azeri territory, as Azeris consider Nagorno-Karabakh as their territory. Armenians would not believe that Nagorno-Karabakh is an independent country, republic, and Nagorno-Karabakh would, believe that it will never join Azerbaijan. But this is the situation, really. And what's your take on this situation? Armenia lost, in fact, any connection, control with Nagorno-Karabakh because Russian peacekeepers are sole master there.
Well, Armenia clearly has a very deep security relationship with Russia. Russia brokered the ceasefire agreement between Armenia and Azerbaijan, and for that reason, they are now present in Nagorno-Karabakh. I think it's not helpful to speculate on who has gained from this war. I think in this war, nobody really gains. It's more that Armenia has that relationship with Russia. Russia has established a presence in the region. I mean, that has helped bring an end to the hostilities, which is important. But now we just have a new reality on the ground, and what the UK wants to see is a peaceful settlement signed by Armenia and Azerbaijan that will enable them to coexist together.
And there was at some point there were also experts also stipulating and exploring that actually 3 autocratic countries ganged up against one of the only democratic country in the South Caucasus, except for Georgia, and and nobody would help Armenia. So that was, to many, it was unfair situation. But now we see the same in Ukraine. I mean, autocratic countries attacking democratic countries, sovereign democratic country that wants to live with, to adopt Western values, to be democratic, to be sovereign, and to go to the West, join NATO, join European Union. Do you see any parallel here, no or not?
Well, I would say that the scale of the war between Russia and Ukraine is clearly far greater. I mean, it's the largest war we've had in Europe since the end of World War II. The humanitarian consequences are extremely high. As I've said, there's almost 3 million refugees, a huge amount of damage to the sovereign territory of Ukraine, and for that reason, the scale of the international community's response has been in step with that. And I think it's difficult to make comparisons between what's happening at the moment in Ukraine and the 2020 conflict because of that scale and because of the fact that this is a matter of Russia invading a country that it wants to decide its own future, and Russia is attempting to prevent them do that. So I would say that's the difference, but the UK has certainly, as I've outlined before, tried to play a constructive, active role in bringing or creating the conditions for a peaceful settlement between Armenia and Azerbaijan, and we have provided extensive support to Armenia in terms of managing the post-conflict effects.
And there will be a time when someone will ask a tough question. I mean, this traditional question, who lost former Soviet republics? These newly independent countries are struggling to stay an independent sovereign country. But President Putin is not hiding his intentions to rebuild the former Soviet empire. We already see Belarus as a fully integrated part of the so-called Union state. Who knows what comes next? Which country is the next? How is your government assessing these geopolitical risks? As a UK ambassador to Armenia, what do you communicate on this subject to your government in London?
So we are very conscious of the risks of Russian expansionism, and we can see through what Russia has done in Ukraine, its motivations in terms of trying to suppress the Ukrainian people's desire to have an independent state. And we are working with all countries in the post-Soviet space to help them become more resilient, better governed, independent, successful states. And that's certainly what we're doing here in Armenia. We're investing a significant amount in improving and strengthening the institutions that are absolutely fundamental to a state's ability to be independent and take decisions in its own interests. We're supporting civil society. We're supporting an independent media, which again is crucial in terms of holding governments to account and enabling transparency. We are also working with the National Assembly to better equip legislators with the ability to scrutinise and pass laws that are in the best interest of Armenia. And in all of that, what our focus remains is, where our focus remains is enabling Armenia to continue to make progress on its path to becoming a fully democratic, independent state that is in control of its own future and can act in the best interest of its citizens.
Now we can see that Armenia is proceeding with the normalization process with Turkey. The dialogue has started. There were at least 2 meetings of representatives of Armenia and Turkey. Last week, foreign ministers of Armenia and Turkey met in Antalya, Turkey. Is your country somehow involved in this process, and do you think that is for real?
Well, the UK is not formally involved in this process, but we welcome the fact that Armenia and Turkey are talking, and I think it's actually a really good thing that Armenia is talking directly to, well, that both countries are talking directly to each other, because through that there is the most potential for there to be an agreement. And I think it's also a welcome thing for Armenia and Turkey to have normalized relations. I think it's it brings benefits to both Armenia and to Turkey, and I think it's helpful for all countries to have normalized relationships with their neighbors, in terms of security, in terms of access to economic opportunities, in terms of people having the ability to move freely. Those are fundamentally good things, and so we welcome this, and I see that there have been a number of recent interactions at high levels, either between the special envoys or more recently between Foreign Minister Mirzoyan and Foreign Minister Cavusoglu, and I think that gives cause for optimism that there can be a breakthrough that will lead to a more normal relationship and will lead to benefits for both countries.
Ambassador, it's very interesting. If you ever, if the British government ever talked to the Turkish government in terms of normalizing relations with Armenia or opening up the border with Armenia, was there any communication between Ankara and London on these issues or not?
No, as I say, we don't have a formal role in this process. This is a process for Armenia and Turkey to manage, and I recognise that that this is not straightforward. There's clear sensitivities in that relationship that need to be overcome and managed properly, and for that reason, it is a challenging thing to work out. But I think this is still something that we would welcome as a positive step in terms of having better outcomes for the region.
Do you believe that they can really cut a deal, or it will have the same fate as it has the first attempt in Zurich?
From what I'm hearing, there is more optimism that the conditions enable a deal to happen, and as I say, I would welcome that. I think it's a good thing. I think both countries have a lot to gain from having a more normal relationship, having a border that is open, and being able to make the most of the potential for that relationship to bring benefits to both countries.
Ambassador, on the embassy page, there is a note about the responsibilities of the ambassador. It says, I quote, "They are responsible for the direction and work of the embassy and its consulate, including political work, trade and investment, press and cultural relations, and consular services." So what I'm interested is, would you cite a couple of examples? What are you doing in Armenia?
Well, I think that's a pretty fair summary of the work of the embassy, and my role as the leader of that embassy and the main representative of the UK in Armenia. In terms of the work that we're doing to support Armenia, as I've outlined before, that we're working to strengthen institutions, to strengthen the foundations of the democratic system here in Armenia, which we want to encourage. We're working there are a few priorities that we're really focusing on at the moment. One is supporting gender equality, opportunities for women. We run a program called Women in Politics, which encourages women to put themselves forward as political candidates and to give them the skills to be able to play that role effectively. We support women entrepreneurs, women in technology, which again I think is a huge source of potential for Armenia to use and to give opportunities to women that they previously may not have considered. Technology is an area where we feel the UK has natural complementarity with Armenia. There's a lot that we can offer each other, and so supporting Armenian companies invest in the UK and supporting British companies come to Armenia is really valuable as well. And in terms of better explaining what the UK does through education, our work towards improving access to English language education through our Learning Hub program, which is in every province of Armenia, and supporting Armenia's education reforms. Through that and through enabling greater visibility of what the UK stands for, what we offer, what our values are. I think building that understanding of the UK within Armenia is really key, and we encourage people to visit and study and do business with the UK as a way of helping develop that understanding and ultimately have a better idea of what the UK can offer to Armenia.
And are you satisfied with the process of democratization in Armenia? Are they really doing a good job in terms of strengthening institutions, democratic institutions, and free media and other institutions? Please, your take.
Well, I think there's certainly been progress in the past few years, and I'm really proud that the UK has had a supporting role in bringing UK experts and sharing our experience as a democratic country of what the principles are and how they can be applied to Armenia. I think the best measure of this is actually through independent measures such as the Democracy Index, through Transparency International's rankings, through Freedom House's analysis of each country, and in that we have seen that Armenia has clearly made positive steps in recent years in terms of deepening democratic principles, and I see the role of the UK as helping Armenia to sustain that progress and to make sure that those principles are really well embedded and are there to be built on, and so that further progress can be made.
So thank you very much, Mr. Ambassador. It was really great to have you in our studio. I hope that we can meet in the future to discuss your achievements in Armenia. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Harry.
It was great. Thank you.
Thank you.